Welcome to Get Real, How to Live a More Authentic Life, with psychologist and author of over 75 books, Dr. Barry Weinhold. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Get Real, How to Live a More Authentic Life with Dr. Barry Weinhold. He is Dr. Barry Weinhold. My name is Ben Barber. Thank you guys for being here. And Dr. Barry, how are you today?
Well, I had a major incident this week that kind of caused a lot of anguish, and I didn't think this was going to be a big deal, but it turned out to be. I got a mouse in the house.
Oh, no.
You know, it's starting to be fall, and the mice are smart. They know if it's warmer in the house than it is outside when it gets cold. And so, I'm sitting in my living room watching TV, and runs across the front of my carpet underneath a chair. And so I decided I'll just get some traps. We'll catch this fella. And 3 different traps, and I didn't catch him. The first one was the traditional mouse trap. You put some cheese on a thing, and with a snap, and when they hit the cheese, it catches them. He was smart enough not to go there. But the second one, which was a piece of flat paper that's actually glue, and it has a scent on it, so the mice are attracted by the scent. They jump on the paper, and they stick fast. Well, apparently he was smart enough to just sniff at it a little bit, and he got a little bit on it because it was moved to another part of the room, and there was fur on it, but no mouse. So then I got a third mouse trap, which was supposed to be someone had built a better mousetrap, as they say. And so I tried that one, and he just ignored it. He just never got close to it. And then Tuesday night, in the middle of the night, he runs across my bed. That was the last straw. And so I said, we got to go with much more bigger weapons with this critter. So I went to the hardware store and asked them for advice, and they said, well, the best thing we could do, and we've used it and works, is this: you plug in this device, and it emits a high frequency sound that hurts the mice's ears, and they leave. So I said, that sounds magical. They said, no, it works. So I bought 2 of them, one for upstairs and one for downstairs, because the mouse had gotten downstairs. And it does give me a 60-day money-back guarantee if it doesn't work. So I'm trying that, and I haven't seen the mouse since I turned on the ultrasonic sound and hurting their ears. So hopefully he decided it was much more peaceful outside than inside, and left the house. So,
there you go. Well, that's always an ordeal.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it would be easy I've had mice in the house before, and I've trapped them and caught them. I don't have a cat, so if I had a cat, that would have been the easiest solution.
There's a wonderful movie. My first thought was, Barry, get a cat. But
I'm allergic to cats, unfortunately.
There you go. There's a stay away from cats and stay away from wheat. And if you have a cat that likes wheat, stay away from that. So don't get Garfield. He'll be bringing all pasta in the house. You know what I'm saying? There's a wonderful. I'm trying to make a smooth transition, and it's not going to happen. There's a wonderful movie called Mouse Hunt from the 90s with Nathan Lane, and it's these 2 brothers, and they have a strained relationship, and they have a strained family relationship, and they inherit this house, and they're gonna like flip it and whatever. And there's a mouse in the house, and the mouse is like the spirit of their father, and they all and the mouse like causes so much trouble that they end up destroying the house.
Oh no.
And it's very very funny, but you got to work on your relationships, you know.
Well,
And
I thought about what is mouse medicine? What is the lesson that mice have to bring to humans? And I didn't look it up. I think I actually will do that when we finish today. I'll go look it up online and
there
find
you
out
go.
what mouse medicine is, because maybe there's some lesson to learn from this mouse coming into my house.
Well, and if those two brothers in that movie had a more authentic relationship between them, maybe they wouldn't
Yeah.
maybe they wouldn't have had so much trouble. So how do you what does an authentic relationship look like?
Well, I'm going to talk about that from a chart that I've prepared. If you can put that up there, it's called Ways to Increase Your Authenticity in Couple Relationships. And here's about 15 different specific ways that I found work with helping increase the authenticity. And the first one is, I think I talked about in the last episode a bit about why people choose each other, and to be able to make that a sharing opportunity and share with each other what unmet needs you each are bringing to the relationship. And then the second one is make a commitment to help each other meet those needs. And I mean, that if a couple could do that, that would go like 80% towards authenticity, just for those two. I mean, it's really being emotionally honest with your partner and saying, hey, I'm aware that I didn't get some of my needs met in either my previous relationships or my childhood, and I'm probably going to bring them into this relationship. And I think this is how they'll show up. I don't know for sure, but if when they do show up, I will let you know that they've shown up. And
Yep.
then I would like to ask you if you'd be willing to help me meet those needs. And then that takes you to the third one. You have to be willing to ask for what you want 100% of the time. You can't just assume that your partner's going to know what to do when you tell them what your unmet need is. You have to be willing to say, you know, are you willing to do this for me? Are you willing to hold me when I get scared? Or are you willing to talk to me when I get confused? Or whatever it might be that your need is, that and to be as transparent and upfront with that as you possibly can. That increases authenticity immensely. And then the other one is basically being emotionally honest and being able to take full responsibility for your actions, feelings, and needs, and not project them on the other person, or refuse to look at your part of any conflict, for example. And that is a given, that if you're able to do that and say, yeah, I see that I just overreacted to you, and it's probably due to an unmet need I had with not getting enough attention from my mother or my father, and I acted inappropriately to try to get your attention, and I'm sorry. That's the kind of thing that builds authenticity. And then the fifth one is a big one. In fact, next episode, I'm going to talk more specifically about this one, even more detail. Convert the relationship from a competitive need structure to a cooperative need structure. This means instead of my needs and your needs in competition with each other, we have our needs. And if we have our needs, they really take more precedent over my needs or your needs. And we have to sometimes give up some of our needs to preserve our needs and be cooperative. But also the cooperative need way I mentioned in the first couple of how you can work together to help each other resolve any of the unmet needs that you brought to the relationship. I'll say more about this next episode. The next one is in any relationship, everybody has exits. You know, things that when things aren't going well, that we distract ourselves by doing. Maybe it's working more, staying longer at the office, or maybe it's drinking, having some comfort food or something else that distracts us from whatever's going on at the moment and that you don't want to deal with in the relationship. Or it can be just shutting down. Some people just emotionally shut down when things get tough, and that's an exit. So I ask couples to think about what are their favorite exits, and what they could do to pledge to close those, so that they don't act on those. They can maybe be aware that they're there, but they don't take advantage of those. And then the next one is a pledge to equalize power, opportunity, and responsibility. And in our modern families and our modern couples, this is becoming much more possible. I mean, the family that I grew up on, and my mother was a cook, my father was the provider. When dinner was ready, it was called to the table to eat. When he left, he pushed his chair away and went and read the paper, did something else, and my mother had to clean up, or the kids did too. So there was roles where there wasn't equal sharing. And so in today's relationships, I see more young couples equalizing this power and opportunity and responsibility, and discarding the old roles that we once had that really weren't that functional to start with. Then I found that many couples, when they get in conflicts, or they have other mutually satisfying moments, not just sex, that it increases their intimacy. And so I find that couples who are able to, and I believe our guest is going to talk a little bit about that, how that happened, how that improved the intimacy in her relationship, just be able to talk about things without getting upset and leaving the room or raising your voice or whatever. And then number 9, being able to respect each other's psychological and physical boundaries. I mean, everybody has boundaries, and if we aren't aware of those in our relationship with other people and aren't sensitive to those, we can sometimes create a disharmony in a relationship. So things like, if your partner's in the bathroom, they may want to be private. They don't want you walking in, and that's a boundary. And so couples need to both communicate and then respect any physical boundaries or psychological boundaries. Like when I'm talking about something that's important to me, I don't want you to walk out on me. I want you to be able to stay and hear me and respond to me. So I think respecting each other's psychological and physical boundaries is a big part of an authentic relationship. And then this number 10, I think couples that have common religious or spiritual practices, not necessarily they do together, but they share some beliefs, some understandings about things that are larger than themselves, perhaps, that builds a kind of authenticity in the relationship and a depth of the relationship. And so I've seen couples who, maybe they're interested in yoga. So they go to a yoga class together. Or they might be interested in just physical exercise. It might be as well as an exercise that they feel closer to each other when they're doing something in common like that. Or they may be going to church together, or any kind of religious gatherings that they share, or religious rituals that they have in the family. Maybe they celebrate Christmas as a religious holiday, and they have certain rituals that they engage in that really brings them close together. So I really think that this is important in many relationships. And you often have couples who came from very different religious and spiritual backgrounds. And so it's a matter of discussion about what do we have in common? I mean, we see the differences, but what do we have in common that we can build on and build from? So then number 11 is a big one. in order to keep the goodwill in relationships, you have to really be diligent in keeping all your relationship agreements. And if you have to change an agreement you have with your partner, definitely renegotiate any changes directly with that person. Don't just blow it off and say, well, I'm sorry, I just got busy. You just have to go back and renegotiate at the earliest possible time. And if you broke an agreement and know you broke it, then your responsibility is to renegotiate that as quickly as possible with the person you made that agreement with, and doing it directly. And then 12 is, I guess, obvious, but it's not so obvious in a relationship, but being willing to see each other as separate individuals. This is the part I talked about in the last episode of being able to have sort of a sense of self in a relationship, that I don't have to give up who I am to be in a relationship. I can be a person who is separate from my partner, but I can gain respect from that person, and they don't have to. They can see things about me that they like and they don't like, but they know I'm not perfect and they're not either, and we accept each other at that level. And that's a big part of how I think authentic relationships are sustained, when couples are able to do that. And number 13, this is a big one. Recognize and reclaim all projections. Well, projections can come in a couple different ways. It can be, sometimes we project things on our partner that we actually could develop in ourselves. I had one client, for example, who was wanting to have a relationship with this person, and he said, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write down all the things that I want from this other person in relationship. And he had this long list. I mean, it was almost like the person had to be perfect to be in a relationship with him. And I looked at him, I said, most of these are projections. These are things you could develop for yourself. You don't have to have them do it for you. And he looked at me like I just said something in Greek. No way of understanding that at first. But finally, he understood what I was talking about, that we tend to sometimes allow other people to do and pick up parts of ourselves that we could really do and pick up for ourselves. That's one level of projection. The other level of projection is that when we project things from the past, that we get triggered by a memory. We're in the middle of an argument or something, and suddenly we're not in the present. We're not dealing with the present person. We're in the past dealing with whoever that person was, and we project that on this person. We see them like the person that we didn't get along with in the past. And that's a huge projection, and that happens quite frequently in the middle of conflicts, when people just simply lose their focus, and they begin to bring in. It's almost like it's automatic sometimes, that when they feel threatened and they have a reaction, an overreaction to whatever the other person said, they will start projecting things and start getting defensive and self-protective, instead of listening and trying to realize that they're now in a projection. And reclaiming a projection is mainly being aware that you might be projecting. And then what I suggest people do in 14 is use perception checks to help you kind of sometimes know whether you're projecting or not. So you're listening to your partner say something and you have a reaction. The first thing you should do before you respond is say, let me see if I understood what you just said. And you feedback what you think the other person said, and you get some validation that that's really what they meant to say. Frequently they don't. You've already got the projection going, and what they're saying is not what you heard, but you now heard something from some other place, from some other person, and you're projecting it into this situation. So perception checks can avoid misperceiving each other's comments, and also can help you in reclaiming any projections you have. And then the last one seems obvious, but it isn't. Unfortunately, unconditional love is not a usual practice in relationship. We think we're loving somebody, but if we have conditions on that love, I'll love you if you be nice to me, or if you do nice things for me, or if you do whatever. That's a condition, and that's not unconditional. Unconditional love means I will love you regardless of what you say or do. I remember my son, I got a conflict with him when he was a teenager. And I said to him, I said, no matter what you do or say, you cannot do anything. There's nothing you can do or say that would stop me from loving you. And that's what unconditional love is. So what do you think, Ben?
Whew. Lot of stuff to digest. I think that it all makes sense. Like each one, um, to varying degrees of difficulty. But I think that number 10 stuck out to me: develop common religious or spiritual practices. And sometimes that can be really difficult. I really loved close all exits.
Yeah.
I think that people turn to stuff like work and hobbies and etc. A lot.
To avoid dealing with things.
Exactly. And I think just constant communication and real communication, not assumed communication. Right. I think that one of the things that trips us up, that your checklist there, your outline really prevents, is assume what I have called with my friends and family, and what assumed communication. Right. So you think that you think the same thing about something. You think that because something happened in the past one way, it always happens that way. And sometimes things change and feelings change and whatever. And when we don't update each other, or we think that we know our partner or our friend or our family member so well that we know when they're angry.
Yeah. Well, sometimes we think we know them so well, we start ending their sentences for them.
Yeah. We start ending their sentences for them. We start not telling them things because we think that and all of this stuff, and you just kind of forget that you're not communicating with each other, because in your head you're having that conversation.
Yeah.
In your head you're having that conversation, and you're like, oh well, you don't like my parents, so I'm going to go to my parents by myself, and I'm not going to invite you to come to my parents with me.
Yeah, right.
And all of a sudden, like, that's not that, but then you grow resentment for something else, and then and I think it's just, and it can be spiritual and religious practices, right? They believe different things. That bothers me. They're and then you start to do those things. You start to work more. You start to drink more. You start to go out and do all of those other things. Right. And so much of it is just, are you actually communicating, or are you assuming, and are you projecting are you projecting other things onto the situation that aren't really there?
Yeah.
And I think that it's such a wonderful these are such wonderful tools that you've created for all of these things, and I think that they're just so beneficial to everybody. And you can click the link in the description of this episode or any other episode to get to all of those links.
I don't know if it's possible to put that list on one of our resources.
Yeah. We'll put that list as a PDF in there as well, so you'll be able to grab that.
And then, in addition, there is a self quiz about it's called "How Authentic Is My Couple Relationship?" So it gives you a chance to do a self evaluation of where your relationship is, which gives you a sense. Looking at the list, you might have some ideas about where you are, but this gives you a much more specific list of our assessment of the how authentic the relationship really is.
And
that's available too.
But sometimes it's hard. Sometimes we have our we have our inner demons that can prevent us from creating authentic relationships. And you actually wrote a book about that called Intimate Combat, and that's what we're going to be talking about next week. So come back, same time, same wherever you're watching or listening to this.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about how inner demons can get in the way of creating an authentic relationship.
Absolutely.
And how to
So, is there anything else that you'd like to say before we go?
Nope.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Remember to click those links. Go to CRCI. Go to circle.org in the description, and it's right there on screen at the bottom left as well. Go check them out and find out more info. All of the resources are in the links. Thank you so much, Dr. Barry. You are such a wealth of knowledge, so I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, Ben. Look forward to next week.
All right. I'll see you then. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
For more information, please visit the Colorado Institute for Conflict Resolution and Creative Leadership at CICRCL.org or click the link in the show notes.